Turn my mic on. Good evening and welcome to the Township of Woolwich Council meeting this September 21st, 2021. Before I begin, I will remind Council that this portion of the meeting is being recorded, live streamed to YouTube and broadcast on Rogers Cable. I will start with roll call for the benefit of those watching this meeting. I, Mayor Shantz, am present and chairing this meeting. Councillor Martin. Present. Councillor McMillan.
Present.
Councillor Merlehan.
I'm present.
Councillor Redekop.
Present.
And Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Thank you. I need a motion that council reconvenes in open session. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Redekop. All those in favor? That's carried. I will just get my paperwork together here. The land on which we meet has been here from time immemorial. People have inhabited southern Ontario for about 10,000 years, and we acknowledge the Attawandaron, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee people who lived here when settlers arrived and who share this land with us. May we together learn to care for and respect each other, our flora and fauna, and the land that we inhabit together. September 30th has been declared the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And as we prepare for that day, our hearts go out to our Indigenous neighbors. We've heard the horrors of the residential schools, the tearing apart of families, and the heartache families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and children have undergone. So let's just take a moment of silence to reflect on the part we play, either knowingly or unknowingly. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? Seeing none, we have one item to come forward from closed session, and that is a motion that the Council of the Township of Woolwich, considering report C16-2021, respecting an appointment to the Woolwich Heritage Committee, appoint Patricia Stortz to the committee for a term ending December 31st, 2022. Can I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Merlehan and Councillor Shantz. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have minutes from Special Council August 10th and Committee of the Whole August 24th. Someone like to move those? Moved by Councillor Redekop, seconded by Councillor McMillan. All those in favor? That's carried. And we have planning public, and I have a piece I have to read here before we get into the planning public. This meeting constitutes the formal public meeting required under Section 34 of the Planning Act. The meeting is for information purposes only, and no decisions will be made at this time. The application will be brought forward at a future meeting of the Committee of the Whole when staff has had an opportunity to review all submissions and prepare recommendations. All those attending will be given an opportunity to speak and are asked to submit a written outline of their oral submissions to the clerk. Please contact planning staff at the township to receive further notifications about the application. Zoning. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Township of Woolwich to the local planning appeal tribunal, I think it's called the Ontario Land Tribunal now, but the person or public body does not make oral submission at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Woolwich prior to approval or refusal of a proposal, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting, or is this the same paragraph again? No, okay, thank you. It sounded familiar. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Woolwich prior to approval, refusal of a proposal, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. I declare the public meeting to be opened, and I will call on Mr. Vink to begin your overview of the applications. Mr. Vink.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. The first application is Zone Change 1, 2021 for the Paul Weaver of the property located at 1261 Delian Place. 12 Delian Place, the property is at the very end of Delian Place, which is a dead-end road. The subject property is a large farm parcel, 42 hectares, contains a number of farm buildings and accessory dwelling, as well as the existing business that's on the property. Staff would just note in the second paragraph, there is a note about the crane being within the road allowance. That crane has now since been removed and moved over to another location, which is great to see. The applicant owns a metal fabrication business that produces large steel bins as an on-farm diversified use. The applicant is proposing to amend the agricultural zoning with an agricultural site-specific provisions to alter those on-farm diversified use regulations in our zoning bylaw to allow two things. First, to increase the outdoor storage area from 35% to 109% of the ground floor area of the operation. Portions of that outdoor storage area would be to the rear, and another portion would be to the front of the building. And that's where the second portion of the application comes in. They are requesting that outdoor storage be permitted ahead of the building line in addition to being in the rear of the building. The applicant's consultant is on the line also, and they have provided a planning justification report as part of their submission. If there's any questions, staff will try to answer them also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Councillor Merlehan.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz. Through you to Mr. Vink. I'm probably going to have the same kind of similar question to the next application as well. But I'm wondering if you could kind of refresh me and maybe council on the on-farm business and how it relates to being supplementary to farming. This particular application that we're looking at now, it looks like it's a substantial part of the farming area, building wise, and I'm just wondering how does the township determine when it is supplementary? Like, is there a part of the process where they submit how much revenue is generated from the side business versus what the revenue from farming would be, just so that it stays within the spirit of the on-farm business?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Merlehan. So we amended the on-farm business regulations about a year and a bit ago, 2 years ago maybe. Changed it to called on-farm diversified uses, and we've structured it in accordance with the provincial policies. And there's a number of tests in the policies. One of the biggest tests around these uses is the size they can get to, and size relative to the size of the farm parcel. So it's maximum of 2% up to 1 hectare, so they can't exceed 1 hectare in size. So that's the main requirement and the guidelines that are in place. So the size governs how large the operation can essentially become. Now, 2% includes driveways, septic systems, buildings, and outdoor storage, anything that's tied specifically to the business. Shared driveways, for example, aren't considered. So the main driveway in doesn't count, but if it's specifically related to the business, that's part of the area of operation and it can't exceed 2%. So that's the main governing factor in our zoning regulations. We did introduce regulations about the height of the structure and how much they could have for second floor. We also did, in our case, in our policy regulations, put in the requirements around the outdoor storage, which they're asking for relief in this case. So we didn't want outdoor storage really to become excessive. That's why we went from only to 35%, it wasn't 25. In this case, because the type of materials that they're producing, these large steel bins, they're having a hard time meeting that outdoor storage requirement. So the main component is actually the size relative to the farm parcel itself.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, I'll call on Mr. Black from RBA Consultants, Inc. to provide an overview of the application or any other comments you wish to make. I think *6 will unmute you. Did we lose Mr. Black, Alex? Okay, I can only see the people with pictures. Bob, if you're there, can you press *6 to unmute and give us any comments you have? The joys of Zoom. Can you can't unmute him from here. Okay. Okay, Mr. Black, we can't seem to hear you. Perhaps would it help if he called back in?
Yes, Mayor Shantz, can I suggest if Mr. Black is on the line still, if he can hang up and call back in, we will let him back in. And if it would be okay with you, we could maybe proceed to the next application while we're working with him to get him back online.
Okay. Mr. Vink.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. This is zone change application 2/2021. It's for the property owned by Edgar Reese, located at 6681 line 86, just outside of Elmira. The applicant in this case has a few operations running on their property at this time, and they like to legalize those. So right now they wish to amend the zoning, agricultural zoning with site-specific provisions to permit an agricultural equipment sales and service operation, the sale of maple syrup supplies, and bulk maple syrup sales. As a farm-related use on about 0.58 hectares of the property, or 1.4 acres. As you can see in the attached site plan, the applicant is looking to remove some existing trailers and to expand the building on the property. So currently the agricultural sales and service operation is about 223 square meters, and they're looking to make that 265 square meters of building space. The sale of maple syrup supplies and the bulk supplies, the bulk maple syrup covers about 334 square meters on the main floor and 370 square meters on the second floor. And they're looking to increase that with 688 square meter addition on the property and get rid of all the trailers. The outdoor storage would be a total of 900 square meters. This is slightly different from the previous application. Previous application, we were amending the on-farm diversified uses. In this case, they're proposing as a farm related. So it moves into a slightly different category in the provincial policy statements. Staff will outline the different tests in the future when we bring back a recommendation report, because they are different for each of these applications. So in this case, they're moving it to something more substantial than an on-farm diversified use. If there's any questions, staff is here to answer them. And I think the applicant is here. Megan from GSP will be making a presentation also.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Vink? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Ms. Garrity,
Hello,
welcome.
thank you. I think I'm to share my presentation, so I will just try and do that now. Can you see that?
Yes.
Great, thank you. My apologies if my head is swiveling. I've got a few screens here to try and operate this all at once. So good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Megan Garrity. I'm a senior planner with GSP Group in Kitchener. I'm here this evening on behalf of the property owner, Edgar Reist. Edgar is also on the line with us over the phone. So I'd like to take you through a presentation describing the proposed amendment. The site is located at 6681 line 86 in the Township of Woolwich, is approximately 2.5 kilometers east of Elmira and is surrounded by agricultural uses. The property itself is an agricultural property with 3 existing businesses, including those described by Mr. Vink. So an agricultural equipment sales and service business, a maple syrup supplies and equipment business, and a bulk maple syrup sales business. And the property is just under 15 hectares in size, with an additional 24 hectares of agricultural lands on the north side of the Kissing Bridge Trail. We're proposing to rezone 0.58 hectares or 1.4 acre portion of the property to permit the 3 farm-related uses on the site as shown in the image there. So for site context, hopefully you can see this clearly on your screens. It's a sketch showing the extent of the existing building, which includes a portion of the farm equipment sales at the north end, an office and sales area in the middle of the building, and a storage area for maple syrup equipment at the south end. There's a second story as well, which you'll see kind of to the side there, which includes more space for maple syrup storage and equipment storage, as well as a lunchroom. There's a 2.4 meter by 12.2 meter storage container that's attached to the east side of the building, which is associated with the farm equipment service use. This is proposed to be replaced with a building extension as shown with the dotted lines. There are 4 storage containers along the south side of the building and additional outdoor storage along the east side of the building, shown in blue. Directly beside the building, that's currently for maple syrup equipment storage. And then along the easterly property boundary is more outdoor storage, which is related to the farm equipment sales and service business. This is where the larger machinery is stored when it's waiting to be serviced or picked up. So to replace the storage containers and the outdoor storage related to maple syrup equipment sales, a 2-story addition is being proposed at the front of the site, again shown with the dotted lines. And the size of that is roughly 668 meters squared or 7,200 square feet, and that would be for both of the stories. There's room for a fire route around the building, and as shown, there are some parking spaces available along the west side to meet the zoning requirements. So the guidelines from the province that Jeremy was speaking to with regards to agricultural related uses, or also known as farm related uses, are as follows. So I'd like to take you through how these apply to this site specifically. So the first criteria is for the use to be farm-related, commercial and/or farm-related industrial uses. So the The Reese Farm Supplies Maple Syrup and Maple Syrup Equipment Supplies sales business were first established in 1939 at the original location, at their original location at the south end of Elmira. And over time, the urbanized portion of the community has continued to grow. So to allow the Reese family to continue to farm as they also operate these businesses, they decided to move the operation to its current location in 2006. That's also when they started the farm equipment sales and service portion of the business in 2006 as well. The agricultural equipment sales and service, maple syrup equipment sales, and bulk maple syrup sales are all farm-related commercial and/or industrial uses. The second criteria, the uses are to be compatible with and not hinder surrounding agricultural operations. The buildings where these uses are housed have been on the site since 2006, as I just mentioned. And based on the owner's knowledge, there have been no issues with existing use to date. The building is located more than 300 meters away from any sensitive land uses, and the proposed building addition will remove the maple syrup supplies stored outside, helping to further clean up the area around the building. The building is of a shape and size that typically is seen in the rural area. The color of the materials used for the facade of the building are also in keeping with those typically used in the rural area, and the proposed addition would use similar materials. There have been no aesthetic elements added to the site that would make it appear out of character, like standalone signage or excessive site lighting or other treatments that would typically be found in an urban setting. The third criteria is that the uses are to be directly related to farm operations in the area. So the farm equipment being sold and serviced and the maple syrup supplies equipment being sold are related to farm operations as they help facilitate ongoing farming, primarily in the local area. The bulk maple syrup sales support local farmers, making it easier for them to sell their supply and provide more centralized locations for bulk sales. The fourth criteria is the uses to support agriculture. So the businesses facilitate ongoing farming, primarily in the local area, by selling and servicing agricultural equipment and selling maple syrup supplies equipment, which are services and products in high demand in this area. The bulk sales of maple syrup helps farmers in the area that produce their own maple syrup to sell their supply, increasing their family farm revenue. And having these services at one location can increase efficiency for customers who, for example, may need something fixed, but also need to pick up maple syrup supplies. Having these businesses on site also allows the Reese family to continue to have these businesses while also farming the land. The fifth criteria, the uses are to provide direct products and/or services to farm operations as a primary activity. So the primary activity of all three of these farm-related uses is to provide products and services to other farm operations. And lastly, the uses are to benefit from being in close proximity to farm operations. So there's a benefit of having the equipment sales and service business in the agricultural area, as the equipment is large and typically towed to site, and the site is located on a regional road, which is paved with large shoulders. There's great demand for maple syrup supplies and equipment to support the production of maple syrup in the region. And there's also a benefit to providing a service where the maple syrup can be collected and sold, taking away some of the burden for smaller farmers to sell their stock on their own. And being in proximity to the farm operation allows for greater connectivity between the services and the agricultural community. So recognizing that was probably a lot to absorb at once, I'm going to make these next sections a little more brief. So in terms of the regional official plan, the site is located within the prime agricultural area and is designated rural in the township official plan, which permits farming as well as farm-related non-residential uses. The site is currently zoned agricultural, which again permits farming, and so far, as we can tell, all of the zoning provisions, including lot size, depth, and parking, can be met with these uses. So for the proposed zoning, we're looking to provide site-specific zoning to permit the existing businesses as agricultural-related uses, and that would be limited to that 0.58 hectares or the 1.4 acres. And the regular farm practices within the rest of the property would continue to be unhindered. A change of use building permit would be required, as well as site plan approval to formalize the layout of the site should the zoning, site-specific zoning be permitted. The diversity of the farm-related uses provides the Reese family with an opportunity to support their family farm revenue while also actively farming their property. The services and products provided help support the local agricultural community as they encourage other farms to diversify also, particularly with regards to the maple syrup production and sales. Cumulatively, we do not believe the businesses negatively impact the neighboring agricultural area or the property, as they are contained within a well-defined and centrally located within the middle of the building, within the middle of the property where the existing farm building cluster lies, which is well set back from the road. So the proposed zoning amendment would permit the farm-related commercial industrial uses, including the proposed additions, which we believe are appropriate for this site in the agricultural area. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me, can I get you to stop screen? Thank you. That's great. Are there any questions for Ms. Garrity? No, I'm not seeing any. Thank you very much. That was informative. I'll ask the clerk, is there anyone else on the line that would like to speak to this? Can you help me out there?
Madam Mayor, we weren't able, unless Mr. Black is able to unmute and join us now, we weren't able to get a hold of him. We do have the applicant, Paul, on the line as well. If he wishes to speak, he can do that.
Let's finish with Mr. Reese's property first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And then we'll go back to that one.
Yes, the applicant is online as well. I think he said he would be available for questions if council had any.
Okay, are there any questions for the applicant, Mr. Reese? No, I'm not seeing any. Okay, thank you then. We'll go back to application 1/2021 and are there any questions? So we haven't found Mr. Black yet. Is that what I understand?
Hello?
Oh.
It's Bob here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Can you
Yeah,
go ahead and tell us what you want to tell us? Go ahead.
Madam Chair, members of council, staff, and public listening to the meeting. My name is Bob Black. I'm with RBA Planning Consultants Limited here in Elmira, and I'm representing Paul Weber, who, as Jeremy indicated, owns a farm, about 104 acres, located at 1261 DeLion Place. And DeLion Place, as you may or may not know, is a dead-end road that stops right at Mr. Weber's building cluster. As a matter of fact, the overhead crane was on the right of way for quite a while until just recently it has been moved in between the two buildings that exist on the property. Mr. Weber operates a beef feedlot on his farm, and the feedlot uses up about 98% of his 104-acre farm to support the beef feedlot operation. They grow corn, wheat, soybeans, various crops that they use to feed the feedlot. The other 2% of the farm is dedicated to an on-farm diversified use. It's an on-farm diversified use, industrial use. The company name is Trilon Metal Fabricating, and this use is secondary to the farming operation. As Jeremy had explained earlier, the size is limited to no more than 2% or 1 hectare. And in this case, it is under the 2%. Trilane Manufacturing manufactures primarily upright steel feeding bins for the agricultural community. It's distributed by Bulk Tech throughout Ontario and across the Dominion, Canada. These bins are used to feed various animals like chicken, pigs, cows, and even horses. This proposal has gone through a planning policy review through and outlined in a justification report that I submitted to the township. It included looking at the provincial policy statement. It included the guidelines on permitted uses in Ontario's prime agricultural areas. Looked at the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the regional official plan, and the township official plan. In all of these policy guidelines that we were required to look at, the justification study went into considerable detail on how we comply with each of these various policy directives. In particular, that the use is secondary to the principal use, limited in area, and that the use shall be compatible and not hinder surrounding operations. And further, that it is a use or it be a use that supports the local agricultural community. The planning justification study went into detail, as I mentioned, on how this on-farm diversified industrial use complies and implements these policy directives. If you had a chance to read the regional staff comments, I think it sums it up quite well as it applies to these policies. And in particular, they have indicated that they have no objection to the rezoning. As Jeremy mentioned, the township has introduced new zoning regulations to regulate on-farm businesses in Woolwich, found in bylaw 5586 as amended, in particular in section 6.22 of the bylaw provision. Section 2.229 deals with outside storage, and it's this part of the zoning that we're requesting that site-specific provision apply to this particular property to allow the outside storage area to be above 35%. In addition, we have asked that the outside storage be allowed, we refer to it as the side yards, because in a committee of adjustment application in number 2/05, Mr. Weber's father applied for a minor variance to reduce the building setback from 7.5 to 5 meters so that he could build the existing shop that Paul Weber operates out of. Then if that's the front, then the rear is to the east of the building, which in this particular point in time is an orchard that's being used agriculturally, and the topography falls off fairly steeply. So to put the outside storage behind the building, in our opinion, is not an option. The area in the side yard, which we'll call the south side yard, Jeremy refers to it as in front of the building, exists. It has a good gravel base to support trucks and trailers that come to pick up the finished product. And so it would not be, at least in our opinion, advisable to take more agricultural land behind the building or to the rear of the building to locate the outside storage there. That's why we're asking that it be to the north of the building and to the south of the building. I think, Madam Chair, the raw material for this particular site would be stored on the northerly side. The area to the south would be finished product. And in the operation or the flow of the manufacturing, the shop one manufactures the first ring of the upright steel bin. Then it moves to the tower, where the next ring is lifted by the tower, which is located between the two buildings, and it's packed in place and then taken back to shop one and welded. Then it goes, when it's completed, it might be 20 feet, 30 feet, or 40 feet high. That's why the tower is so high, to lift these rings up to place on the bin. Once it's completely welded from shop one, it goes to shop two, which is where they are painted. There is no sandblasting occurring on the site, just painting. And once they're painted, then they move to the outside storage area, which is located to the south of the building. So from a product flow perspective, it works better to have that area as outside storage. The bins are very large, very long, and they take up quite a bit of room. And thus, the larger area, more than 35%, is required. In our opinion, because it's on a dead-end road, we don't see that there would be any impact visually or to surrounding agricultural operations to have the outside storage located here. Farm clusters in the area are more than 300 meters away from this particular use, so we do not see any impact whatsoever to other farm-related agricultural uses or farm clusters and or environmental impacts to any other rivers or bushed areas. I think, Madam Mayor, I'm going to stop there, and I don't know if I know Paul is on the line listening, and if he wants to expand or answer any questions, he's available too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council, are there any questions for either Mr. Black or Mr. Weber? No, I'm not. Oh, Councillor Shantz, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have a question for either one of them. I just wanted to know if that is a certified paint booth that they're using.
Yes,
Go
maybe
ahead.
Paul, you should update Mr. Shantz on that. I know we talked about it today. And you have the MOE application well in hand, and it should be approved shortly.
Mr. Weber, did you want to comment on it further?
I am not a professional by no means, but I certainly can comment on it. But first, I need to hear the question again. There was a bad echo, so I didn't catch the main part of the question.
I think it was whether the paint booth is certified.
Okay. Yeah. So yes, it is. It was new in 2013, pre-engineered paint booth. That is a total different subject. We're going to address the final details on that from a building code standpoint at a future time, working with Dave Heichert on that. So yes, we're getting that all tickety-boo.
Thank you. Councillor Merlehan.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor Shantz, I guess to either the applicant or Mr. Black. Can you talk about the outside storage? I'm just wondering if this is how the operation has been operating since whenever this business started, and if the 109% that you're asking for the extra leeway there, is that something that's currently being operated that way with the extra storage on site?
Yes, it is. It's been operating, started in 205 actually, or 206, I guess. And it has grown since then. And the outside storage for the finished product, at least, has always been in the southerly side yard. It exists, and to put it back to agriculture and move it behind the building, in our opinion, is not a good solution.
Okay, and just with a follow-up, what is currently? It sounds like maybe a staff opinion or maybe a policy or something is suggesting that it has to be in the rear of the building. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's in the zoning bylaw provision. I think it's 6.229. That provision that it would be to the rear, in the rear yard.
Okay, and then in the rear yard, right where it says the other proposed storage behind the building, did you say that's an orchard right now?
Yeah, it's agricultural there from the building easterly, and it's part of an orchard and other agricultural uses.
Okay, it's just that it says there, then that's the area of operation. There's the line that goes all the way around the site. And wouldn't that be about the same size as, I mean, I'm just looking at empty boxes, so I don't know. I don't know what the size, what's on there. So I'm just trying to figure out if that's possible. And
yeah, the area of operation goes along the easterly side of the most easterly building. And further east towards Highway 85 is the agricultural area designated that way in the regional plan and the township official plan. And part of this process is to try and save agricultural land as much as we possibly can. So for us to go out into that area would fly in the face of that particular policy, in our opinion.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Shantz, would Mr. Vink be able to talk about that particular or this particular situation?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So if I understand the question correctly, you're asking if they could move the storage to the rear in the area where it says right below the area of operation on the site plan?
Yeah, it sounds from the applicant that they're asking for it to be there to go against whatever the policy is that Mr. Black just referenced. So if you want to speak to that, or
so yes. So the zoning regulations say, because they're generic, say, and we wanted to keep outdoor storage behind buildings so they don't become prominent as people drive by. We wanted to maintain an agricultural look. So in this case, the proposed southerly storage, as he's showing on there, is ahead of the building. So that's where staff is saying it should be more to the rear. So in this case, just since he's going through the process anyway, we're clarifying where the storage is going to go. So the southerly storage is where they're proposing those larger more finished product of bins. And then the northerly storage is the raw materials. Now, next to that northerly storage area, which is a gravel surface that just says area of operation, they're still using that as part of the operation will be gravel, and they're going to be putting their parking up in that location. So it's still utilized by the business. It's just for their purposes, in their planning report, they outline that it makes more sense to have the finished product in the front just for access and how they operate. And for the trucks to come load and unload for the finished product. So it's just more sense for them to have that product on the southerly side. So that's part of their application, is why it's in the planning report as to why they're proposing it to the south more so than to the north and hiding it further behind. Just for council's purposes also, if you're driving down Arthur Street and looked by the railroad tracks and looked to your right, you would actually see the rear of Mr. Weaver's property, not the front. So you're actually going to see, if you look in the distance, you would see his raw storage and his operation more so than his large bins at the moment.
okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, I'll just ask if there's anyone on the in the meeting that would like to speak to this. No, clerk is shaking his head. So thank you very much, Mr. Black and Ms. Garrity and Mr. Weaver and Mr. Reist. And there being no other speakers, I declare the public meeting to be closed. We have no presentations and no delegations. We do have some unfinished business, and that is final approval of 17-2021, and I'll call on Mr. Petherick. There you are.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So as council will recall, back on August 31st, reports F-17 2021, which was the budget development report for 2022, there were several recommendations that were presented in the report. And as part of that recommendation, any recommendation from council was going to be brought forward to tonight's meeting. So this is kind of that time for second sober thought. So the resolution was passed as in the report, and just briefly talking about it, at least for the first 4 points. First one was just keeping the existing service levels that we budgeted in 2021 to bring that forward into 2022. To apply the new assessment growth that we're going to be experiencing, and if council recalls through the report, still projecting anywhere between 3% and 4% is what we're going to probably see in 2022. That new assessment growth would be funding the operating and capital budgets from a growth relating perspective. Then to also prepare the draft 2022 budget with a 2.5% base change. And as council recall, that was based on some of the economist predictions of where the CPI is going to be going in 2022. And as well then to have a discussion and make a direction on whether council wants to put any additional funding into the infrastructure levy. Staff are proposing an additional 1.5%. As well as with the climate action greening infrastructure levy of 0.85%. And that was the $100,000 that council already approved through report RO7 2021. The rest of them, and I think council really ultimately needs to deal with the first 4. The last 2 is this basically approving the 2022 budget schedule. If council decides to do nothing tonight, it's okay. We can move forward with the budget schedule we have. That's okay. And here and there from a staff perspective. And the other one was just recommending that this be brought forward to tonight's council. So essentially that, Madam Mayor, this is council's opportunity as a second sober thought to revisit the budget development for 2022 and provide some direction to staff as we start to prepare. I can say right now, I've been in budget mode. I know a lot of directors have started to get into the budget mode. We do have our first draft for the operating budget due this Friday. So any direction you can provide will help out, but it doesn't mean that we're set in stone anything at this moment. So I will just turn it back to you, Madam Mayor, and have council's discussion.
Thank you. Council? Are there questions, further discussion? Councillor Shantz, lead us off.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So if I remember correctly, that's all boils down to a 4.6% increase. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if we're looking at 2.5, 1.5, so you're dealing with 4.85%. So there was the 2.5, 1.5, and 0.85 is what we'd be looking at in the 2022 budget from a tax rate increase.
Other discussion, questions? Would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Martin?
As I said a few weeks ago, that's a pretty hefty increase. And it seems strange to me that over the last year or two with COVID, all we've heard is how people are struggling and people need help and they need extra time to pay taxes and they need this and need that. And we go on and on and on. And then we turn around and come with a 4.85 excuse me, increase and kick them in the butt. That doesn't make any sense to me. And I said before, I'm not going to approve it with 0.85 for climate change. I think it's necessary that we do something, but it's not our responsibility to fix the world's problems. And I think we can take care of issues in Woolwich for a whole lot less than $100,000 and bring that 4.85 down. Those would be my comments.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Shantz?
Yeah, I just had to gather my thoughts. So thank you, Mayor Shantz. So I agree with Council Martin. I can't see us having a 4.85% increase for the reasons that Councillor Martin just spoke to. We all received an email this week about building greener and getting our climate, our greening actions that way and putting it on the developer. And I'm wondering if we can do that instead of having the 0.85%. And I don't know where that would lie. I don't know whether it would lie within the planning department or whether it would be the building code department, or how that, or whether it's just bylaws that we put in place. I'm not sure how that would all work, but I think we should look at that and add something to the building so that they're greener. And some of the suggestions was electric heat pump and things like that instead of gas, getting us off the gas, which the government is trying to do. So I would suggest we could do that, something along that line, and not have the 0.85% increase there.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Merlehan.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Shantz, just some general comments on the 4.85. This isn't going to be anything new because I said it last time. This is a result of decisions that council has already made. The 0.85 greening, we already voted on that, and that was passed as a council motion in a previous meeting that happened this year. 0.85 is a pittance and not much. And if we just look at the Elmira Nature Reserve that is going on a pretty big site there, they could use some money to plant trees, tons of trees. They are working on a shoestring budget of about 200,000 that they have been looking for private sponsors, and they haven't come to the township as of yet. But I certainly see that as a worthwhile endeavor to support, and there's certainly lots of other elements of greening that the township can do and start taking on more of a leadership role in some of those areas. And I agree with Councillor Shantz that we definitely need to start making policies to push and promote greening, especially with new buildings. And even if we go back to the greening Waterloo Region plan, one of their suggestions for a policy that we could implement before the end of the year, which I don't think we're going to make, is making sure that we have electrification at curbs and stuff for parking, for future charging areas within our settlements, so that when we do a reconstruction, that we are setting up for the future. So that's a policy that maybe we can start working on in the new year. Again, we made a commitment to rehabilitate the Peel Street Bridge. That's completely unfunded at this point. So I would suggest at this point, what we've already committed, that's where we're getting the 4.85. And you can push back a little bit, I suppose, on the 2.5 base change, but that one's going to be tough too. So I think you're looking at coming up with suggestions for cutting services, and if that's what we have to do, that's fine. I would like to hear some of those options that you'd be willing to look at, services that we can go without. Until that happens, the greening, I think the infrastructure, again, we are thoroughly underfunded with the amount of infrastructure that we need. And I'm open to any of your suggestions for service cuts.
Anyone else? Councillor McMillan?
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I can understand the hesitancy of the 4.85 if we, don't dive into the numbers. But when we look at a 2.5 increase for inflation just to keep up um, the cost of everything is going up by a lot more than 2.5%. 0.85 for the green levy. I agree with Councillor Shantz. I'd love to see a lot of stuff put on developers, but we are in a yes and situation. Everything has to be on the table. And I think the amount of money that we're asking for, I think people are, I think if we surveyed the people in our township, we would get a demand for more than that. I think a majority of our residents would demand more than what we're doing on climate change. And I think Councillor Shantz, you mentioned that email that you received. That was from a citizen, a neighbor of mine. I think that she represents a large swath of the community that is looking to us for leadership on that issue. And I think we're already failing at 0.85 to deliver the leadership that our constituents want to see. So I would not support that number going anywhere but up. And I think Councillor Shantz, great ideas. Yes, and then the infrastructure, I think, is something that was unfunded for a long time. And unfortunately, we're left in a situation where we're dealing with unfunded infrastructure projects that previous, not just our council, but previous governments at all levels, put up the price tag for the infrastructure, but then didn't have the plan to maintain it. And we're dealing with that. So I think we are where we are. I can understand the 4.85 being, not an easy sell, but I think it's the right thing to do, and we need to do it. And with respect to the COVID, I think when you're talking about somebody who's lost their job and can't pay their taxes, we can help them. I don't think you can equate that to asking everybody who hasn't lost their job to chip in, a few extra dollars over the course of the year to do the things that we need to do. So I don't see a parallel between a responsible levy increase that we're asking for, and at the same time helping people who have lost their jobs, aren't able to make ends meet specifically because of COVID. So we approved this a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still in support of it now.
Councillor Redicott.
Yeah, I agreed with our COVID measures, but I don't think that many people took us up on it. Like the rate of payment of taxes was really quite high. And I think Canadian statistics show that more people have more wealth now. I agree with Councillor McMillan that we do have people in our township who lost their jobs or have a lesser paying job. But I think the majority have done relatively well in the midst of a pandemic. So I agree with our recent decision about 4.85. It's a tough sell, but I think it's what we have to do.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder, or I'll ask Mr. Petherick again, can you remind us where we stand in terms of our tax rate versus some of our neighboring municipalities?
Yeah, for sure. So I believe the last time that I looked, and unfortunately I don't have it in front of me, it's kind of the I would say the pitfalls of kind of being at remote, because of when I connect back to our network, it slows Zoom down to a crawl and everybody freezes, including me. But the last time I recall looking, we still had the lowest tax rate in the region.
Okay, thank you. So do we need to have a motion on this? I think it was sort of given as direction to staff, but you're looking for a motion. I see Richard nodding.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I can say, Madam Mayor, so a couple of things is looking for the motion really on points 1 through 5, because 6 is irrelevant because we're dealing with it tonight. And as I think I said in the August 31st council meeting, that point 5 should say endorse the 2022 budget schedule. You've already endorsed the 2021. So yeah, it's always I always say, welcome to my world. Half the time I always have to remember what year I'm in. It's either I'm looking at last year's stuff, or I'm looking at next year's stuff, and started keeping this year's stuff. But the big thing to also really say to council is, this is a direction. This isn't the final product. We are going to be having our budget deliberations in January. So it doesn't mean that things are going to change between now and then. It doesn't mean priorities aren't going to shift between now and then. Council may change their mind between now and then. I think for us, this is a good point that we can start to formulate and build a budget. And then when we get into the budget deliberations in January, then it really gets into, have we put the monies that you're allowing us to build into the budget? Have we put it in the right places that really resonates with your constituents, as well as our ratepayers and council as well?
Okay, thank you. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, one of the concerns, I've heard Councillor Shantz bring it up and Councillor Merlehan bring it up, and I think it's a good one, and just like to ask Mr. Petherick about it now. One of the concerns is if we set that benchmark, that staff find soft areas to put money, like just to reach that benchmark. And Mr. Petherick, could you talk a little bit about that? Like, is that a concern? And two, is that a problem? If we see that that's a problem, is there a time for us to solve that or fix that, in January?
So through Madam Mayor, I think I probably want to get clarification on soft areas. I would take it as areas that may not necessarily be providing the value that council may feel. If I can catch your sentiment correctly.
I thought I was teeing that up pretty good for you, Mr. Petherick, to say there's absolutely no soft areas in your budget.
Well, and if you were going where I thought you were going, and that's the thing, I think over the last number of years, we have leaned out our budget, especially the operating budget, quite significantly. We've leaned it out quite a lot. And I think we're starting to see some of the pinch points. We're struggling to keep up even with inflation. Just having inflation built into our operating budgets, I think at times we're struggling, at least on the operations side, to be able to keep up with some of the maintenance activities that we should be keeping up with. And this even translates a little bit into the capital side of things too. We had a very aggressive capital program, at least both in the infrastructure services and the recreation and community services side of things. But as they said, if you get more money, they'll do more work. But I mean, that also really comes into having the resources to be able to do that work. But we just don't have that luxury. So I think for us, having capacity built up in our budgets allows us to be able to do some of these pressures, to be able to get to some of these maintenance activities, to be able to provide the services that I think some of our residents are looking for. Because we do have very lean budgets right now, very lean.
Thank you.
So if there's no other questions, I'd be looking for a motion. Moved by Councillor McMillan, as it's written. Seconded by Councillor Redekop. Any further discussion? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, we have a number of items on the consent. Yes, on the consent agenda. Summary of recommendations from the September 14th Committee of the Whole. The Elmira Core Area Urban Design Consultant Selection, Boundary Road Agreement, and a couple of items for information. Does anyone want to discuss any of them? Councillor Merlehan?
Just on the consent item number 4, are we voting on this? Do we have to vote on all these? Because I had a pecuniary interest on number 4 on the tractor. I just wanted to point that out. And then I guess and I guess I wouldn't mind talking about the Americorps area and urban, and just get a little bit more information from staff on that particular project.
Okay, well, why don't we do the information, and then when it comes to voting, we'll pull 4 out separately for you. What's your question on the core area design consultant?
Well, just because it's a project that we wanted to happen last year, and just to talk about it in public more, as far as timelines and what it involves. Just get that recap. I'm sure people don't want to run to the report and read it all. So if we could get a real brief overview just for the public in this case, so they know what's coming.
Thank you, Mr. Bink.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, to council. So the Americorps review is a broad view of the downtown of Elmira, to take a look at some of the areas more along the fringes, and to take a broad look at how we can better utilize our downtown, some of our parking areas, some of our lands, to improve the look of the downtown and those fringes also. So we're looking at some landscaping improvements. So we're looking at a consultant to go through, take a good hard look around, look at the downtown, see what we can do to improve, some methods we could improve, ways we can see increased building activity for commercial and residential within the downtown, and to give us a plan to work with to move forward. So doing that, they are going to work on that over about the next 6 months once we get the contract going. And that will include a number of different meetings. So there'll be consultation with council, the BIA, and the community. There'll be some public meetings so we can get input and from everybody about ideas and issues that they want to see addressed. So whether it's cycling lanes in the downtown, whether it's the lands, whether it's parks, whether it's other public spaces, whether it's building look approach issues. So we can tie that all together and then come forward with a strong plan, probably around March, April next year for council to review and hopefully approve. That'll include potential zoning and official plan amendments that may come with that. So.
Okay, I just, sorry, through you, Mayor Shantz, want to remind that the downtown area, the region will be doing a reconstruction of the downtown. I believe that's 2024, something like that, or 23. Anyway, as long as this plan includes like some of the streetscaping aspects of the downtown area, and that the community does get a good shake at input on what they're looking to see downtown. But thank you for the update and the overview, just for the public's. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, if someone would like to move all the items on the consent agenda except number 4 under committee of the whole, moved by Councillor Merlin, second by Councillor McMillan. All those in favor? And that's carried, and we'll do number 4, which is the purchase of a New Holland tractor. Moved by Councillor Shantz, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We have one staff report, and that is the Elmira Fire Station renovation. And I will call on Mr. Thomas Vanderhoff. Welcome. I'm having trouble hearing you. I'm not.
How about now? Yes, no, maybe. Can you hear me now?
Not very well.
Well, Ann MacArthur may have to do this for me then.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Thomas may have to go, leave the meeting and come back in unless he's got a pair of headphones or something else connected. That may be the best option.
Do you have headphones that are connected? I did that once. No. Ms. MacArthur.
Hi there.
Hi.
I don't have anything highlighted, but through you, Mayor Shantz and Council, if you'll see that the renovations that were approved in the capital forecast earlier during budget deliberations, staff have gone out to do an RFP to have that program put into place, and these are the results. And I think that through myself, and I can connect with Thomas here, if you have any questions on the particulars of some of the interior renovations that we're proposing to move forward with. With that, we try and answer any questions.
Okay, Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. Just one quick question. It said in here the 2018 highlighted a total of 144,000 needing to be necessary for repairs. And I'm just wondering, is this going to complete the repairs then, since we've done the roof already? Is that everything that has to be done in that building now, or are there going to be some more that outstanding repairs for another year?
If you can hear me now.
Oh,
Yeah, you can hear you now.
There we go. So the building condition assessment completed in 2018. So that does really just highlight items over the $5,000 threshold, I believe. One of the larger items, I believe the largest, was the roof replacement. I believe around $100,000, and our tender came in much cheaper than that. So we've done that as well. And then this renovation that we're completing wasn't really highlighted in the building condition assessment. That's more, hard kind of function of the building. So roof systems, masonry, that sort of thing. So there are a few smaller items to still address, but the majority was the roof.
Do you have any idea what the costs of the extra repairs are going to be?
I can pull up. Give me 1 second here. So the roof replacement was roughly $100,000 budgeted for in 2018, and the additional works included some masonry repairs, and asphalt replacement was $125,000 as well too. So that was the second largest item. The state of the asphalt is fine for the next 5 years based on, kind of our observations. So yeah, the majority of that BCA has been addressed at least for the next 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, would someone like to move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Merlihan, seconded by Councillor Shantz. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Thomas.
Thanks.
Report on regional matters. I don't have anything tonight. Council, any other reports? Councillor Merlihan.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor Shantz. Just have a bit of a request of council to see. Just want to take your temperature on what you might think about a no tolerance policy for disrespectful behavior in our WMC and public facilities. Just in light of the province coming up with vaccine passports, behavior in facilities of non-vaccinated people sometimes has gone to quite the unacceptable level. It's one thing to have an opinion about how you feel about things, but disputing facts and disputing what the law is that the township is complying with the provincial policies. And just over the weekend, township staff had to, the emails that come in that are calling them psycho Nazis. And I took a email back and forth with a parent representing some parents that were unvaccinated about hockey and Township's liability for unsupervised children, and it was the email that I had was fine. It was it's the talk around at other municipalities when you see the kind of abuse that staff have to endure. And we have a expect respect policy in our facilities, but when municipalities have to start hiring security guards to check passports and to make sure that people using the facilities are complying with provincial standards, I don't think any of our staff deserve that. I don't think high school students working part-time jobs at grocery stores have to endure that abuse from people. And I'd like council to make a bit of a statement to support our staff, and that in our facilities, WMC in particular has video cameras that can serve as some sort of evidence, I suppose. But anybody that is our users that are abusing our staff in any way should lose the privileges of using that space for a certain period of time. And I don't know if by me bringing this up will instigate some sort of thing. I really hope it doesn't. But I don't believe anybody deserves the abuse. If you want to, if you feel strongly about not being vaccinated for your own personal reasons, then keep them to yourself, and you don't need to take them out on other people just doing their jobs. So if there's anybody on the rest of council, I just want to hear if anybody thinks that this could be a good idea. And I wouldn't mind if maybe staff could come on board and just let us know if they have any experiences or if they think a no tolerance policy would help them do their jobs.
Ms. MacArthur, can you help us understand how things are going in our facilities? I know that I've received some of the emails too, and people are frustrated, but it is the requirement. So what are you finding?
Through you, Madam Chair, to council. So, we have been receiving a number of calls and a number of emails, similar to what Councilor Morahan has just reflected on. Lots of opinions and requests for exemptions. And I don't think, certainly we're no exception to the rest of the region. We really appreciate that council continues to support staff, and the comments made tonight go a long way to, for us to continue what we're doing. And along with that, some of it we won't know, Councillor Jean and council, until probably the next week. The passport rollout for us will start tomorrow night, and we'll see, a slow rollout of that and how it goes with the community. Because, it may be this 48 hours of reflection that people are making comments on. And then once we get the process in place, that it may, we're hoping that it resolves itself. I think that it's important for us and to reflect on Councillor Morahan's messaging, is that it's really important for us to say, I know that it's not ideal for everybody, the situation and the circumstances we have coming into rec facilities, but I think it's important in the messaging. What we're trying to do is, let's not necessarily blame the government and public health protocols, but at the end of the day, we want people to be active for physical, mental health, and social inclusion and all those benefits of recreation. So the facilities are open, people are able to get active. Maybe they're not ideal, maybe you don't get to have showers, and maybe not everybody gets to come in and watch their children, play their favorite sport. But at the end of the day, the goal is to get people in facilities and get them active again after a long period of shutdown. So I think we implore everybody is to focus on those strong goals and the importance of those rec facilities. We know what outdoor amenities did for people during lockdowns. People want to get back inside, and it's going to take some time, and we appreciate everyone's patience, and we ask for respect. I think that we would like the opportunity that if people are, just aren't appreciative or respecting the policies, that we will. They may lose ice times, they may lose privileges, and if it gets to some point where, it's really difficult for people at the front doors, we'll have to look at some kind of process about locking the doors. So I think at this point, that's the feedback I could provide. And then we'll have to monitor over the next 7 days and may have to come back to council at that point.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you know, we're doing our best, everyone, to try to get through this and keep everyone safe. And you can look at other areas, other provinces, other countries, and see what happens when things open up too fast without any kind of controls on it. So it doesn't feel great all the time, but it is allowing us to continue to have our facilities open and to continue to operate and not have to go back down into shutdown mode, which I don't think anybody wants to do. Thanks. Does anyone else want to comment? And Councillor Merlehan, I appreciate your bringing it up and highlighting it. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. So if I understand, Ms. MacArthur, you're saying it's not necessary right now to have a motion of council stating a zero tolerance policy, because I agree with Councillor Merlehan. You know, a statement from council, I think, would go a long way. So I'd be willing to support Councillor Merlehan if he put forward that motion tonight.
I don't disagree with the statement. I think a strong statement from council is good and okay, and we've made it known also that all of council is vaccinated and has done that. I guess the question for me would be to what end, you know, what's the outcome? What are we putting in place that's different from what we already have would be my question. But I'm gonna let Councillor Shantz speak, and then if someone wants to reflect on that.
Yeah, I agree with both Councillor Merlehan and McMillan. I'm wondering if we can put something in place now, because we're not going to be meeting for 2 weeks. And it doesn't mean that we have to use it, but if it's there, it can be used. I guess I have issues with all of the social media and everything that's going on and things that are happening in other countries and things like that. But I really don't care what's going on in other countries. We have a problem here in Canada, and we have a problem in Ontario that we have to deal with, and that's the reality. And you know, just because other countries open up for whatever reason, I think we have to take care of our people, and I think that's what we're trying to do to the best of our ability. So yeah, so you can get on. It's just like anything, you can find information that's going to back your position, but I think the stats show us here in Ontario and in Canada that we have a problem that we have to deal with. So I don't have a problem having something in place that can be used if we need it, and then if we don't need it, all the best. That'd be great.
Mr. Brenneman, do you have a suggestion on what that might look like?
So I mean, two schools of thought, Madam Mayor, through you to council. You know, council could use the language Councillor Merlehan has suggested around zero enforcement, or as Councillor Merlehan had noted, you know, we already have the expect respect in the workplace. Other type of language could be that council supports fully staff's strict enforcement of the respect or expect respect. You know, in the workplace at our facilities, and I say that I do like the idea of council passing some level of motion, because today I learned that one of our neighboring townships actually had to remove 2 different individuals and put no trespass. You know, it got to that extent. So I think it's only fair, considering, you know, recently we dealt with even a mandated staff vaccination policy. We continue to emphasize, and council continues to show leadership in saying that the health and safety and welfare of our staff and our patrons is important. And so therefore, I think, you know, any sort of motion to support that would be in order, especially as Councillor Shantz noted, we don't meet for a few weeks. And as Director Ann MacArthur has noted, this type of motion would be very important for staff right now in terms of their anxiety levels, worried about what they can expect. So I think it would be good on council to consider some motion, either the zero tolerance, if that's the way you want to go, certainly, or strict enforcement of the expect respect policy.
How would zero tolerance be different from our expect respect policy?
Well, I guess I don't want anybody getting hung up on the fact that, you know, what anybody thinking that zero tolerance means nobody can, you know, even speak their mind even in a professional way. You know, like I guess the boundary, zero tolerance sounds strong. I appreciate the sentiment, as I know Ann MacArthur and her team would. It's just, I was suggesting strict enforcement of respect or expecting respect, just because that tells, you know, that tells staff, hey, you've got tools in place, use them strictly, don't tolerate any sort of disrespect of a significant nature. So again, no, I think either will accomplish. And the good thing about this is the sentiment that it not only puts out to the public, but also to the staff that are such a valuable resource for us.
Thank you. Councilor Merlehan.
As far as the intent for me for council, I want to give staff the opportunity to third party again. I mean, it's one thing to say, well, it's the provincial government. I'd like them to also say, our council is supporting this 100% and is saying that it's zero tolerance. We do not have to, you know, debate you on whatever the merits of your decision are. This is the rules, and that's it. And if people escalate from there, I would be fine with a temporary losing access to the facility. And if it is one group of parents from, let's say, like it's a hockey team or something like that, then I think Woolwich Minor Hockey or some of the hockey groups should also be monitoring, because they are they're the customer, I guess, for Woolwich, that they need to get their people in line. And I don't want it to be super punitive that kids are going to miss out on the sport, because that's not fair. But the parents, the guardians, the users of the facilities need to respect staff and not have any kind of I don't know, scenes happening in our facilities. It not only it doesn't make it awkward for staff, but it makes it awkward for other patrons as well using the facility, and they expect that respect as well. And I don't know. I would put a motion forward, and I really just wanted to take the temperature of council tonight. So I didn't actually prepare anything, but if you can pull a motion out of what I said, I would be all for a no tolerance aspect and strictly enforcing the expect respect. And if somebody else wants to chime in.
Something like that the Council of the Township of Woolwich, I was going to say fully supports, but it sort of re-endorses.
Strongly endorses
the strict enforcement of the expect respect policy, including loss of use privileges if necessary. Councillor McMillan, you want to chime in?
Yeah, sorry, Madam Mayor, through you. My definition of respect includes obeying the provincial vaccine requirements. Somebody else's definition of respect might not include that. I think the language has to be a little bit more clear that we support the province's vaccine requirements, or we support our staff's enforcement of the vaccine requirements, And we, as a council, support any measures required to maintain the expect respect up to and including loss of privileges of the use of the facility, something like that. I think we have to be more specific with the language regarding the vaccines.
Okay. Is there any chance that Alex or Jeff have caught this and can put it up on the screen for us? Alex is smiling. That's a good sign, I think. Dictate it to Jeff. He'll type it real quick.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just give me one moment and I think we will have something that we can share on council screen for them so they can see the language and we can help you here.
Thank you. In the meantime, are there any other comments?
No pressure, Jeff. Just hurry up.
Sorry, I didn't come up with anything. I've been mulling it over for a couple of days.
That's okay. We can work on the fly. That's good. Draft is good. Larry, you want to sing us a song? You'll sing while on mute, right?
Yeah, I could relate to slow down, you're moving too fast.
Yeah, I can't share my screen either. Madam Mayor, could I read it to you?
How about Mr. Smith reads it to us because we're having a little trouble with the screen share. Go ahead.
So what we think we heard, Council, was that the Council of the Township of Woolwich supports staff enforcement of the province's vaccination policies and any measures to enforce the expect respect policy up to including loss of use privileges if necessary.
I'm seeing nods and thumbs up. Is that good? Did you
I'll
want
move that one.
Yep, seconder. Councillor Shantz, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, anything else from council? Councillor Martin.
Chair's not with us tonight, is he? Is he?
Yeah, Mr. Poupet. Hi.
Oh, there he is.
Here.
Okay. We have I should say there's a property in West Monrose that has been negatively impacted by a tree that's on our property. What happened 2 weeks ago, a big limb fell out of it, ripping out of the hydro service out of this property. And left the village without hydro for about 6 hours. It's cost them $1,500+ to put the hydro service back into the house. They had to drill through the stone house and put a plate on the inside to hold to anchor the hydro service. This is the second time it's happened. And the first time it happened, they paid $1,100+ to reinstall the hydro service. So they are asking if we are going to compensate them in any way for the damage to their property, because it's our tree. And we should have probably taken tree down the first time it happened. Staff told me they're working on it, and I said, get back to me, and that's 8 days ago, and I haven't heard a word, probably not surprised. And then it gets more complicated. They're also talking about redeveloping their property, and they could probably get 3 lots out of it. And the township said, hey, that's a good idea. However, the minute you do that, we're going to take frontage from your whole property for a future road allowance. Now, anybody in their right mind knows that there's not going to be road widening in West Monroe's. But that leads to the second problem, and they have a tree on their property that's within this road allowance. And so they'd like it down, and they're willing to take it down themselves. And they also have a second tree on their property. They want to take it down so they don't have any more damage to their house.
Okay,
And
can we, is this something that can be done with staff offline?
well, I think council should have some input in it. I
Okay.
mean, I've tried with staff, nobody's got back to me. And I can understand that they want the 2 trees and they're willing to take them down themselves. But then if we turn around and take road allowance, if they redevelop, and for land that they've paid taxes on for 40 years, then we should be responsible to take the 1 tree out. So I'd like to see some kind of a letter of understanding that they take their trees down to protect themselves. However, if there's redevelopment and we take that land, we reimburse them for the 1 tree.
Okay. Mr. Poupey, and I don't want to get into a whole lot of negotiating online.
Yeah, absolutely. Through your Mayor Shantz to Councilor Martin, I recall the conversation. Obviously, I will have to check back with our operations staff to see what's happened. I think there's a few processes at play, and I would suggest that if they have a concern with the township, we have a claims process, and that's a very simple process that they can simply put their claim in writing to the clerk's department, and that will be reviewed. And I can certainly follow up with you tomorrow about the condition of the tree or when we are able to remove that tree. Regards to the road widening, that would be a planning process that we'll need to talk and communicate with our development services department. But again, we can come back to you once there's been a formal application. So I think immediately they could certainly flow through the claims process, and I can get back to you tomorrow about what's happening with the tree or when that is coming down, if that truly is on our property.
Okay, can I leave that with you, Mr. Poupey, and Councillor Martin to discuss tomorrow then?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay. Outstanding activity list. Councillor Shantz.
Maybe if we could get Mr. Poupey back again.
And you thought you were getting off easy tonight.
Yeah, there you go. It's moved up to number 1 on our outstanding activity list. It's Snyder's Flats Road, and I was just wondering if you have any information on that development and drainage and all of that with the road and the parking lot.
Yeah, thank you through you, Mayor Shantz, to Councillor Shantz. There has been movement. I can say that it's not stalled. There's been it's caught up in some process. So I can certainly say that it is moving forward. Not 100% sure though, and I think I'll need to follow up with staff on some tender timing if that is proposed to actually start construction this year or not. But they are working through some of the. It's really contingent on some of the development piece. So the roadway is ready to go. The community center parking lot is ready to go. It's more along the development approval process piece, notably the outlet. So that is being worked on, and hopefully we do see some movement this year yet.
Okay, so just one more request then. Is the road grader going to go down Snyder's Flats Road? It's getting pretty bad. I was just down there the other day again, and just wondering when that would possibly happen. And I guess I should have given you a heads up, and I apologize.
Oh, it's okay. Through you, Mayor Shantz, and I'll have to circle back with obviously our public works staff and see what appreciate again, you know, right, 2 grader operators, lots of gravel roads still. So you know, I'll look back and see where they are and when we can attend to that site.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on the outstanding activity list? Okay, there's no notice of motion. I need a motion that the following bylaws in the hands of the clerk be read a first, second, third time, and finally passed, and that they be numbered as bylaw number 53-2021 to 56-2021, and that they be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with a corporate seal. And I don't think there's any conflicts on those, right? Okay, a mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Merlehan, seconded by Councillor McMillan. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. I think that's the first time we've been able to do all three in one. That's a little quicker. And that is all that's on our agenda for tonight. So motion that the meeting adjourns to meet again in regular session on Tuesday, October 19th. Councillor Redekop and Councillor Shantz. All those in favor? Thank you very much. And thank you to all who participated either on YouTube, excuse me, or on Rogers TV. Council, just please stay connected on Zoom until Alex confirms that the live stream has stopped. Good night, everyone.